Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. Today we're going to talk about self-help. So really the different ways that you can support yourself when you're in perimenopause. My name is, this is me. Look, this is me, Kate, back in 1992. And I've always had an interest in how the mind and body interact. And I started studying with body psychotherapy back in the last millennium and gradually kind of refined my career through women's health, really based on my own experience of trying to get pregnant, getting pregnant, having a couple of kids. They're now young adults. And then quickly after having my kids, being in perimenopause and just not finding solid, useful information that made sense to me about what was happening. So that was really my trajectory. My trajectory is always to understand better myself, so that I can then to educate myself, so that I can bring more clarity to other people. So all of this stuff comes from my training at Red School, which is the menstruality educators, and but it comes really driven. It's really driven from my wanting to understand my own experience first. So everything I share is lived and real and stuff that I do in my life. Couple of years ago in 2022, my first book was published, and this is really I wanted it to be a complete manual, so that everything, not everything, but all of what I thought was really useful for perimenopause would be covered in there, so that people didn't have to go anywhere else to find information or to find practices. So that was hailed as part of the menopause canon by the New York Times, which was like completely cool. It was really fantastic experience for me to have that work recognized. And here's me, that was last summer actually. My days are spent working one-to-one with people and in group mentoring. I do talks like this one. There's a podcast, I'm an artist, and a Yoga Nidra guide as well. That's a kind of guided meditation. So that's kind of my life, my working life there. And just to say, with the there is a worksheet that you should have received by email. If you can, print that off or have it nearby so you can refer to it. It's not essential, but there's going to be, if you were here last week, there's a bit more interaction here. And my intention for you is to build a doable self-care kit for yourselves that is unique to you, that will be doable and useful and pleasurable for you to care for yourself. So if you can get hold of that, that would be good. And a word about confidentiality here. With the recording, I'm not sure if you can see my face, but none of you are going to be visible on the screen. It is recorded, but you can be completely anonymous. Please use the chat, however, to ask questions, to share your experience, because the greatest learning we have is from leaning into other people's experience and finding that actually we're not alone. So please do use the chat. And when I refer to it and refer to your comments, I won't refer to you by name, so that the content of what you're sharing, I might be talking about, but it won't be possible to identify you, so you can stay anonymous. But your sharing of your experience absolutely makes a difference in terms of your own self-expression and in terms of encouraging other people too. So please do use the chat in a way that feels safe and helpful for you. So what we're going to cover today is a positive view of perimenopause and menopause. We're going to look at food. Now, I'm a bit of a stroppy. I'm a bit stroppy, to be honest, and I hate being told what to eat. So this is not going to be like restrictive madness. This is going to be a really generous, gentle, kindly way of thinking about food. We're going to talk about movement and exercise and how to make it easier for yourself to get more movement into your life. We're going to be looking at the toxins in your home that might be affecting your hormones and where you can find more about that. You should also have access to excuse me, I drank my coffee too fast. To a resource page where you can get loads more information about all of these things. So I hope that this will be digestible and easy for you. And if and when you want to go a deep dive into symptoms or particular areas, all that is there for you waiting. We're going to talk about rest, which is just crucial at this time of your life. And I'm going to show you why that's crucial. And we're going to just blow up this negativity about aging. And we're going to talk about all the good stuff about aging and how to live a vital life in your post-menopause life. Somebody says here that managing your demons, yes. And that's what we are going to be talking about that. I've got some great ideas to support you with that. And I know that there are loads more courses that you can access at low cost or for free that will help you too. So we can signpost you to that as well. And we're going to be talking about sex, because who doesn't like talking about sex? Okay, so that's the plan. Stick your questions in there. Yeah, so my first inquiry is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how empowered do you feel about managing your symptoms right now? If you could put that in the chat, please. So empowered might mean knowledge about what to do, how to do it. 4 and 6. 4, 6, 7. So there's 6s and 7s. Oh, you're good. Well, I'm really happy to see that. I'm really happy to see that. And someone here says it varies from day to day. And I think that's also very typical. That sometimes you can feel completely on top of things, and the next day it can feel quite challenging. So it sounds like you're all pretty competent at managing your well-being, and presumably eager to understand more. And I hope that we can at least refine your offerings and really affirm what you are already doing. So here we go. We're going to dive in with the possibility of perimenopause offering psychological growth. And there even being gifts involved. So this is a bit of a recap from last week, but if you weren't at last week, you'll catch up really quickly. So we're cyclical. All humans are cyclical, plants are cyclical, and animals. So we all live in these cycles of increasing expansion as we move through spring and summer, and then increasing introspection and reflection. So it's like the seed growing and sprouting and blossoming in summer, and then the fruit forming, and the plant dying back in winter and going underground and coming back. We all wish that we could be in an endless summer, constantly on the move, constantly busy and productive and full of energy and full of charisma and, all on top form all the time, out there in the world at a party all the time in our summer. But this is simply not possible. And, if we were like that, then we'd end up like Donald Trump or something like that, you know? We have to have these autumnal and wintry times of reflection to assess what's happening and what's going on, and winter rest. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. It's like day and night. So this image that you're looking at here shows this cycle of expansion and contraction in terms of your life. So if you had your first period around here, then your teen years would be spring, where you're discovering who you are and what life's all about and how you can be in the world. Summer years, very concerned with multitasking, with seeing your unique skills and visions in the world acted out, being effective in the world, so having your spirit be made manifest in the world. And that, you know, that might be activism or having a family or in your career. And just to say, of course, this is a model. So in real life, not everything goes according to plan, you know, but what we're describing here with the seasons is our innate desire, our innate psychological desire for these things to happen. And coming into autumn, this is where perimenopause lives. And this crossover here, this line here, exactly describes this. Quite often it can feel like a catastrophe, that an emergency, because we can no longer perform this all singing, all dancing role, because it's time to assess what works for us and what doesn't. It's time to look critically at our life and how we've been served and what we want to happen. And the menopause years, so, oh, I should say about perimenopause and menopause, what the difference is. So perimenopause is the time leading up to your last bleed. So that could be through your 40s. And menopause is a year since your last period. So these are sort of general, these seasons describe general times around your around your menopause transition. And the menopause would be a time when you're much more accepting of the situation, much more able to rest and gather energy for the next cycle. And here is the next cycle. So here we are in post-menopause. So my picture is, there we go. I'm going to move myself like that. Right? Yeah, okay. So this is a post-menopause second spring. So say you're approximately 55 to 65. A post-menopause second summer, 65 to 75. And here in our second autumn, there's an assessment and a winter at the end of our lives. So the way that we nourish ourselves through our perimenopause and menopause directly affects our quality of life post-menopause in our second spring, second summer, second autumn, and second winter. And what's more, we have been, our body is coded how to do this. We've already been shown how to do this through our menstruating years. So here is the same model in our menstruating years. So if this is your period here, then this is post-menstruation, maybe energy increasing, ovulation, you know, the all singing, all dancing sex pot that you are, and coming into the premenstrual phase. And again, this is a time when we see what our needs are. And of course, in the world, that's not necessarily convenient, because in truth, we're holding the whole universe up on our shoulders. You know, we are bearing the domestic load. We are bearing the main caring loads. And often we're breadwinners as well. We're holding all the things. So the problem with this becomes apparent in our premenstrual phase, because we're more sensitive. We have a more inward focus. But the useful thing to know is that whatever triggers you in your premenstrual phase, and whatever soothes you in your premenstrual phase, will directly relate to what will trigger you and soothe you in your perimenopause. So well worth having a little think about what goes on in your premenstrual phase that is driving you crazy and what you might be able to do about it. I'm just going to have a look at the chat. Feel like I'm currently in a very long winter. Yes, it can feel a very long time. And of course, because we haven't been educated to expect to rest, we've been educated to expect to just keep blooming going all the time. It can feel like a long time. And if you think about how much energy you've given and how much rest you've had in your life, that is going to directly affect how much rest you're going to need now in your perimenopause. So here's another diagram of the of these life seasons, and you can see in your resources there is another version of this for you to download. You can stick on your fridge and have a little think about afterwards and share it with your friends if you want to. And I particularly want to draw your attention to this perimenopause part. And there are particular keys that will help you get through. And space and time to yourself is one. You're going to need more time to yourself. And this can be very tricky and demanding when you have, other people who think that's unreasonable. And again, people haven't been educated to expect us to need more space. So, I mean, when I was in perimenopause, there was no mountain high enough. There was no horizon big enough for me. I just needed all the space. Duracell woman. Oh, yes, that Duracell woman, that myth. So here are some of the keys that are going to get you through. Space, telling the truth. And that means to yourself about acknowledging where you are, what you've done well, and what you wish that you'd done better. Forgiving yourself too, I think, and facing your critic. So this part of this facing the critic is very much part of owning your power, about owning your fierce strength. And it can feel very frightening and very scary. So it links strongly to facing your demons, I think. So when we're able to meet our critics and meet our demons, there's a real reckoning, a psychological reckoning that goes on, a wrestling with who we are and what we've done. Yeah, so I think that's all I want to say about that. And you can look at this later and think about how it might relate to you. The perimenopause lady with Duracell children. Oh my goodness, yes. Well, you have my sympathy with that. It is very, very demanding and difficult bringing up small children in perimenopause. And many of us had kids later. I did, and it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle. So, where are we going next? Oh, food. So, yeah, you are, as I've shown you in with those diagrams, you're increasingly sensitive through your perimenopause. And this means emotionally sensitive to noise, sensitive to stress, and also sensitive to food. So you'll find that all sorts of food intolerances show up in your perimenopause. For example, sorry, I just lost my thread there. And the thing is that nobody can tell you what is right or wrong for you, because we're all so different. We all have a different kind of digestion, different heritage, different background. The only way for you to figure out what is working for you is to track your symptoms. So you can write it down in your diary, you can write it down in a chart or in an app, or however, whatever's easy and pleasurable for you to do, or you might journal to notice what happened when, say, if you have flushes, what you were eating beforehand or what emotions were around beforehand. You know, I'm 58, I'm pretty much symptom free now. And my daughter, bless her, bought me some chocolate covered marzipan for Mother's Day on Sunday, which I guzzled down at high speed. And yeah, sure enough, 90 minutes later, I was sweating and sort of pulling all my clothes off. For me, there's a clear relationship between sugar and hot sweats, and sleep as well. So somebody is asking, sorry, did you say facing the critic is about stepping into our power? Yes, I believe it is. And we're going to talk about that later. And the same person says that they can no longer tolerate gluten, beans, pulses, caffeine, or alcohol. Yeah, I mean, alcohol, very common. So track your symptoms and get to know yourself. It's all about a sort of an increased intimacy with yourself that you're developing. So things that are become toxic, increasingly toxic at this time. Carbohydrates can contribute towards mood swings. And there's often a sort of paradoxical hellfest that goes on here, because carbs tend to be what we reach for when we feel really low and awful, you know, those donuts or mashed potato or whatever your thing is. But the sugar come down after eating them will contribute to mood swings. Sugar, of course, contributes to all these different difficult issues. Alcohol. It's interesting to know that the liver is also responsible for processing excess hormones in your system. So if your liver is very busy processing the effects of bottles of Prosecco, then it won't be able to efficiently eliminate excess hormones. So taking care of your liver is a really sweet, delicious thing to do. And coffee, somebody says they can't tolerate coffee anymore. I can. I have to practice, but I can tolerate coffee. But it does decrease the availability of vitamins and minerals. And none of this will be news to you. It's just that now in your perimenopause, you're just a bit more sensitive. So I'm not suggesting that you stop everything, because that potentially could be a road crash. What I recommend is that you reduce one food type this week. So what day is it today? It's a Tuesday. So in the next 7 days, what one food type could you reduce? And you can put it in the chat, or you can note it down for yourself. So that might be less sugar. That might be 1 less cup of coffee or tea a day. What one food type could you reduce this week? And someone asks here, excess hormones? Have we not got a lack of them, rather? In perimenopause, our hormones are jumping around, they're irregular. You know, through our menstruating years, we've had a nice regular rhythm. And the difficulties in perimenopause are caused by the changing levels of hormones. So sometimes, yes, there will be too much estrogen in relation to progesterone. And the liver is part of the system that processes that. And having a big variety of estrogen to progesterone, you're going to notice it. You're going to notice it in having more weight in your middle, maybe sore breasts, low mood, that kind of thing. More protein. Thank you so much for that comment. Yes, protein is pretty much the answer to everything because it stabilizes your blood sugar. Really good idea to have more protein. Someone says here, I've been trying to cut down sugar for years, but the body does shout louder at this perimenopause stage. It's where to get the sweet stuff that isn't food. Yeah, absolutely. So what is really sweet for you? You know, that might be in terms of touch and physical touch or hugs or stroking your pet. That kind of sweetness. You know, that I very much feel that our relationship with food is more often about emotional needs. So it's about understanding or getting curious, at least, about what your emotional needs are that are driving your food. Carrots are sweet. Indeed, they are. I'm a bit carrot obsessed. So here are some things to eat more of. Protein, as we've already mentioned. And there's an aspect of plants called phytoestrogens. And it sounds like they're more estrogen, but actually they're adaptogenic, they help to balance our hormones. So these are things like linseeds. Linseeds are really, really cheap. And you can grind them up in a coffee grinder and stick them on your porridge or in a smoothie or whatever. Flax seeds, sesame, tahini, lentils, oats, sprouted seeds, all really, if you put adding more of this kind of thing into your daily diet is going to really help manage your seasons, manage your symptoms. More broccoli and dark leafy greens, so spinach or dark cabbage, pulses and legumes, and soy. So edamame beans are quite if you suddenly go from eating no soy products to a load, it can cause a bit of wibbliness in your tummy for some people. But edamame beans are a great way to start. You can buy them frozen from the supermarket, and they're not expensive. So that you can add a few of those into a curry or into a salad, and that sort of thing. Yep. Overnight oats is a great way to do it. Ooh, excuse me, jumping around. That's where you soak oats the night before, and you can put some seeds in there, put some nuts in there for extra protein, and that will see you through the morning. Good fats, you know, for years we've been sold low-fat food that has extra sugar in. Now it's time to put the good fats back. So that's avocados, olive oil, and nuts. And just eating more fruit and vegetables. You know, if you eat 5 a day, try for 6 a day. If you eat 6 a day, try for more. You know, getting more vitamins and minerals and micronutrients into your diet is completely where it's at. Right, so somebody says here, I found that adding more whole foods over time has reduced my cravings for processed foods, and they taste less good to me now. Yeah, so I think that's a really, really helpful comment. I think that we have to educate our palate to expect different levels of sweetness over time. Tahini and cocoa nibs. There are some great tips here in the chat. Really, really helpful. I'm a tahini fan too. Okay, so our next inquiry is, what one food type could you add to your diet this week? What one food type could you add to your diet this week? An extra handful of nuts? Perhaps? Or maybe an extra portion of vegetables a day? What could you add to your diet? So again, really thinking about kindness and generosity towards yourself in this food thing. We are not going anywhere near deprivation and diet culture here with this. So how can you add nourishment to your life? Right. So what about movement and exercise? You know, how does that work? let's have a look at this. The best kind of movement is, of course, is anything you actually do. So here are some suggestions. I'd love to hear about what you like to do. Just being more active in any way is winning. So here's a list here. Kitchen discos. I do love a kitchen disco. Maybe we should all have a kitchen disco together. That would be just be the most fun. Yeah, I think just more movement. We've become enormously sedentary in our lives. So there's just so much that we can do, you know. Weight bearing particularly is helpful for strong bones. It's important in perimenopause and beyond. And that might be going to a local class. I have a great women-only class that's outside near me, which I just adore. But it might be walking with a heavy rucksack or walking up a hill, something like that. Cardio, really helpful for heart health. And I think that often we get confused because what's worked before doesn't work for us now. So last week there was someone sharing in the chat about how they'd always done cardio and they just couldn't do that anymore. And the body can sometimes, with some body types, read cardio as stressful, and more stress will further put your hormones on the wonk. So sometimes that doesn't help. But I think that again, going back to what is useful is what is pleasurable and what is fun. Not sure what types of weight-bearing exercises to do. Due to work, I need it to be online, but I don't want to pay to join an online plan. Joe Wicks has a new Menno series, but you have to become a member. Oh, Joe, that's very naughty. That'll probably be free in 6 months. I think that there is a huge ton of stuff available on YouTube. Maybe tell you what, I'll make a note. I'll add free exercise vids to the resources. I'll go and find some for you. There we go. Just writing a note. I'll put those on the resource page so that you can get hold of those. Yeah. So here we are. We're thinking about weight-bearing exercise. So part of the trick is to make it easy for yourself. So my inquiry for you to note down on your worksheet or to think about or to put down in your journal is, how can you make movement easier for yourself? What does that take? Do you need a reward afterwards? Do you need to do it with your mates? I think having friends to do it with really, really helps. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, somebody is saying in the comments, the biggest thing is accepting that there are things I can't do. Yeah. So working at your comfortable edge. So that doesn't mean collapsing into, well, I just can't. It means, so what is fun? What can I do? Where can I in what way can I exercise that feels good and helps me to feel strong, and accepting what we can't do. So having it be easier is like leaving your gym kit out the night before so that you could just get up and put it on and go. Yeah, how do you make it easier to do this kind of thing? That's your inquiry. And there's another aspect to movement. We've been talking about exercise classes and formal exercise, but we also live an incredibly sedentary lifestyle at the moment. You know, here I am, I'm sitting at my desk. Ooh. Yeah, I'm sitting at my desk. I spend a lot of time sitting, writing. And even those who do the amount of physical activity recommended by the WHO, the World Health Organization, which is, what do they say? 75 minutes of intense activity. That's an hour and a quarter, or 150 minutes of moderate activity. That's probably like walking, don't you think? Like a couple of hours of walking. Can still be considered sedentary if they spend 4 to 6 hours sitting or reclining per day. And we're all sitting at our computers. So the other kind of movement we need to consider is taking breaks and moving around, because our parents and certainly previous generations weren't sitting in the way that we do. So how can you move through your days, through your working days? And this is, I'm not sure if I don't know if you're aware of the blue zone. Blue zones are areas of the world where people live to a great age and good health. So they're full of sort of really spicy, juicy centenarians. And these are some of the things that they do. They walk more. You can stand at work. I have a standing desk. When I'm full of beans, I do standing. And I mean, I was talking to Lauren earlier. I do get sort of hyper-focused and in the zone when I'm at work, and time goes by. And I realize I can have been sitting for an hour and not moved at all. So I set reminders on my phone to make myself get up and stretch and move, and take the stairs, go upstairs to the loo, go and get a glass of water, walk to the post office, go and making sure that you build in this kind of activity and movement into your daily life. Just going to check the chat here. Yeah, somebody says here, I feel better for a physically active day, even when I'm really tired or depressed. Being sedentary directly affects your mental health and makes you feel basically very glum. And there's a comment here around grief around things that we can't do. I think it's really, really important that we allow the expression of grief for what has passed and what we cannot do. We're grief averse in this country. We very much feel that we need to sort of jolly along and get on with it and not make a fuss. But there is certainly a perimenopause kind of requirement, an autumnal requirement, that we grieve what we haven't done or grieve what we can't have, so that we can move on to what we can have as well. So thank you so much for those comments. It's really important, and that includes a grief for growing older as well, and for what we have or haven't done in the past. Really, really important to acknowledge those things. Thank you so much for bringing those. So now we're moving on to our homes and how they might be affecting us. I mean, how can our homes make us worse? Let's find out. There are things called endocrine disrupting chemicals in a lot of the products we have around us, and they're very everyday products. And they directly affect your hormone balance. So cosmetics, for example, you may have heard of parabens, which are really not good for us and really unhelpful. Cleaning products. Have you ever seen any ingredients on a mainstream cleaning product? No, they just don't want you to know what's in there. So with cosmetics, back in the day, for my mum, say, she would have had one kind of face cream, and I'm fairly low maintenance, but even I have sort of 3 or 4. So using fewer cosmetics and skin stuff is a great start. And look at the list of chemicals, and in the on the resource page there is a link. Actually, I think it's on the next slide. Yeah, it's on the next slide. If you go to the Breast Cancer UK website, because they know about hormones, right? They know about how to be careful with hormones. They have an extensive list and guidance, and I think a handbook that you can download that will tell you about all of these things. So cosmetics have hormone disrupting chemicals. Cleaning products, you know, we can use fewer, use eco products, use ones with less fragrance perhaps. Plastics also disrupt your hormones. So it's the bisphenols and phthalates in, I think it's at, what have I got here? It's recycling code 7. And again, don't worry too much about looking at that now. You can go look at, when you really want to deep dive, you can look at the Breast Cancer UK website. But in general, use less, use fewer single-use plastics, and that will benefit you and the planet. Flame retardants, if you're buying new furnishings, there are flame retardants on sofas and mattresses and wooden carpets and practically everything. So yeah, really, it's a really great case for buying secondhand. And of course, pesticides. Where you can, buy organic, and where you can't, wash your vegetables. So these are all things that will be affecting your hormone system. And there is the hormone disrupting chemicals are called xenoestrogens because they're chemical estrogens. And this is on the resources page, but this is a link to an app, yucca.io/en, and that you can point the app, you load it on your phone and you point the app at whatever the thing is, the shop, and that will tell you about what's in it. So that's really handy when you're shopping. And you can, yeah, Google how to check for xenoestrogens and you'll get loads of great advice there, or look at the Breast Cancer UK website. That's my preferred source because I absolutely trust that they know what they're talking about. Someone is giving a vote for Yucca there, the app. Okay, so your inquiry is, what one product can you edit from your life? What can you use less of or not buy out of that list of cosmetics, cleaning products, plastics, flame retardants, and pesticides? What could you reduce? What one product could you buy? Could you not buy next week, or could you ditch or stop using? I went on a, the curry boxes. I went on a curry box editing spree because they were all scratched and disgusting. Okay, so it's time for a reset. I'm going to talk about rest. One of the biggest issues for us at the moment is that the misogyny that we live in causes so much stress. We feel not good enough, we overcompensate because we feel small, we do tons of emotional labor. We're probably working for less money than our male counterparts. There are all sorts of intersectional issues going on that may give us more stress, and we're working with ageism. And all of this causes us a massive extra load of stress that we're carrying, that we've accumulated all through our lives, which is now hitting us, which is why many of us feel completely exhausted, because all of this stuff is pretty much invisible. You get it, I get it, people who are in it get it, but it's never named or mentioned really in the wider world as making us having an effect, overwhelming our hormonal system. That's not understood. So we absolutely have to prioritize our rest now. So what does that look like for you? You know, it might be lying down having a nap. It might have to be spending 5 minutes gazing out of the window, pottering, slack-jawed time. What does it mean for you? A cup of tea, maybe, social time with friends, maybe drawing or walking in nature. Somebody has become a social butterfly. Yes, you know, because we need to lean in to our social networks now, more than ever. So knowing what is restful for you is really, really helpful and really, really good. And in order to get more of it in your life, you're going to have to say no to something. So assuming that you have identified what kind of rest is really delicious for you, what are you going to say no to? Yeah, I'm getting a bit hard here. What are you going to say no to make more room in your life? Maybe it's on the domestic front. Maybe you need your housemates or partner or kids to pick up the slack. Maybe you're going to say no to unpaid overtime or reduce unpaid overtime. Maybe you're going to let your house get a little dirtier. I can recommend that for sure. What are you going to say no to make more room for rest in your life? And there's someone here saying hammock time. I love a hammock. Watching garden life, clouds. Yeah, these are things that are just so soothing and so restful, and most importantly, really accessible, are always available. Well, maybe not a hammock, but clouds are. Clouds are always available. But in order to have more rest, you're going to have to say no to some stuff that you don't want to do. And luckily, in perimenopause, your boundaries are absolutely on fire. So I'm going to move on now. And we're going to talk about aging. So there was a book written in the early 60s called Feminine Forever by a guy called Robert Wilson. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend you buy it. And this guy, he was one of the first proponents of HRT, and really the prescription of HRT started with him, and he started from an incredibly misogynistic place. And I think it's really interesting to hear what he had to say about menopause. He said, all post-menopausal women are castrates. Their breasts and genital organs will shrivel. If they take HRT, they will not shrivel, and she will be much more pleasant to live with and not become dull and unattractive. And that gives you a sense of the kind of ageism that is, well, that was the 1960s. Yeah, it is awful. I wonder how much has changed. You know, there's very often a sort of a hidden agenda where people expect you to, could you just stop complaining and be nice now? And behave in a nice way. And people don't want to hear that misogyny is at the heart of so many of these difficulties, as I showed you earlier. You know, Mary Beard, who's, you know, brilliant academic, is regularly called a witch when men usually don't agree with that. You know, there's also something, it's quite common for people to be told that they're too old for that outfit, or maybe it's okay on a younger person. Somebody's saying here, there was a woman online only this morning saying we're all attention seeking and need to get on with it. And somebody says here, I consider witch a compliment these days. Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, and people regularly report being made invisible because our culture is youth obsessed. So we're really up against it here. And in this image, you will see some of my favorite postmenopausal people. There's, I think that's Icon Accidental. There's Maya Angelou, Margaret Atwood, Molly Parkin, now deceased, sadly. Of course, the wonderful Miriam Margolyes and her friend, the fish. This is Angela Farmer. She's a yoga teacher and great luminary and influence on me. And this is Thingamajig, whose name I can't remember, the actor. Emma Thompson. It was a good day. I can remember Emma Thompson's name. So I think one of the things that we can do for ourselves is to find great role models. And I'd love to hear yours. If you'd like to put them in the chat, that would be great. And your medicine is really, and this is medicine, whether or not you're on hormone therapy, is to put yourself first. This is our lovely self-esteem there in her pants, bless her. Because prioritizing pleasure. Pleasure should be prescribed by your GP. It positively benefits your health in all kinds of ways. We need time alone. And as I've been hinting all through this presentation, the way through is to make small, oh, stop it. My icons, yeah, if only you knew, very imperfect icon. Making small positive changes and increasing the amount of rest we have in our life, increasing the amount of soothing we have in your life, and making connections, positive connections. You know, where we have so many opportunities for connection with social media, and we can be more connected and more lonely at the same time. And we're in such a vulnerable time in perimenopause that we just need more connection. So, you know, chat to your friends, build networks, and use the resources for well-being that you have. But don't go out in your pants until it's warmer. Oh, I love self-esteem. Anyway, here we go. So on sex, onto the good bit. So this is, you know, I can't believe I'm going to have to do this in 5 minutes because it's such a hot topic. It's a really hot topic. And that there are physical issues that do affect intimacy in perimenopause. So reduced estrogen can mean that the tissues of the vulva are thinner and can be sore. Okay, and this can also lead to UTIs and things like that. But you can, from your doctor, get a topical estrogen, which has a really low dose of estrogen. There are no side effects for this, and that can be really helpful. So there's definitely stuff that you can do to support the thinning tissues. Other problems that show up in sex and intimacy are relational. So because you're in an autumnal state, all the stuff that you haven't dealt with in your relationship, if you're in a relationship, will be coming up now and getting in the way. So there is a kind of a meme or a trope about women going off sex in perimenopause. And for some people, that is true. I also know, like, about, and this is me, in my experience, this is purely anecdotal, about 10 to 15% of the people I come across have increased libido, are very, very horny in their perimenopause. So what is absolutely true is that perimenopause is a transition. So your body is changing. Your capacity for pleasure is changing. Things are absolutely different now. Whoop. I keep jumping around. Things are absolutely different now in your body, and it is your responsibility to discover for yourself what is pleasurable for you now. What is pleasurable for you now? And it's likely not to be what it was 10 years ago. And you absolutely won't be able to put up with what was not particularly good enough, but you could get along with it 10 years ago. You absolutely won't be able to deal with that now. You know, it's time to prioritize your pleasure. And of course, if you're really stressed, that kills your libido. So deal with the relationship issues in your relationship. Find ways to manage the stress in your life and rest more and pleasure yourself. Find your way about what is pleasurable for you now, what would be delicious. And the other aspect is to nourish your lust for life. You know, libido isn't just about this sort of narrow band of sexual energy. It's all of your life. Find pleasure in all ways. Pleasure with your friends, playfulness, joy in color, in texture, creativity. Nourish your creativity, and your libido, your sexuality, will follow. And there's also, something about a gender shift as well. I mean, sorry, a sexuality shift as well. So often people can just, who've been in a heterosexual relationship, can just go off men, for example, and some other aspect of their sexuality, or new kinks can show up. So my recommendation is that you're really open to what makes you hot now, not what made you hot last year or 10 years ago, and get really creative, really creative with what turns you on. Okay, so your inquiry is, how can you include more pleasure into your life this week? What would be pleasurable? And I would include that in that eating very slowly, really savoring the flavors, or I don't know, really, you know, it's that real mindfulness business about slowing down and maybe really smelling the coffee, your coffee or your tea before you drink it. How can you include more pleasure in your life this week? Just going to check the time. How are we doing? 2 minutes to, got lost in sex. So here we are, managing your demons. We spoke about this earlier. So we have been told that we're faulty and useless for years, and we've kind of come to believe it. So it takes a bit of heft to shift our negative beliefs. But these habits that I've been inviting you to look at around food, around pleasure, around movement, these changes that you've committed to today, and of course, forgiving yourself when they don't work out, will start to change your mindset. You know, by making these habits, you're showing yourself that you're worth it, that you can look after yourself, that you are worthy of kindness. I love this quote from Brené Brown: talk to yourself like you would to someone you love. Noticing your thoughts, and again, mindfulness is central to this. And I know that Lauren has a bunch of wonderful courses that you can dive into. Just noticing the thoughts as they arise, really powerful. And we can, by noticing our thoughts, we can start to strengthen the observer part of us, the part of us that notices, the part of us that isn't caught up with the stress. We can separate ourselves from our critics, from the fearful part, and choose where we want to give attention. Who do we want to give attention to? And the third huge power we have in managing our demons is gratitude, however you like to do that. You can do that counting on your fingers when you get up or before you go to bed, or you can write them down. You can share them with your friend or your partner or your kids. All kinds of gratitude, but also validation, that real kind of pat on the shoulder, like, hey, I'm doing really well. I actually got out of bed this morning when I really didn't want to face the day and I felt like poo. Really validating yourself for everything that you do all the way through. I'm going through a CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, I think, addressing so much from the past. Yeah. Dealing with those things, this is in capitals, dealing with those things is crucial for balance and happiness. It is. Facing these critics and facing these things from the past is absolutely crucial for your happiness. And there's someone recommending Bethany Webster, who is her thing is mothering herself. Yeah, in perimenopause, you are being invited to mother yourself, to grieve the times when that hasn't been possible or when you haven't been mothered well, and to really take over that care and love for yourself. Right, so where are we now? Your comments are so great. Oh, that's so sweet. Someone here saying, me and a mate text each other at the end of each day, sharing things that we're proud of ourselves before. That is just brilliant. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where you really get to recognize and validate your brilliance, your perfectly inhuman, human and imperfect brilliance. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, how empowered do you feel about managing your symptoms now, where 10 is super empowered? At the beginning, there was a variety between 5 and 7. I'm interested, of course, to see if that has shifted for you. How empowered do you feel? There's an 8. Okay, so the numbers are going up, 7 and 8. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's really good to see. And some days are a car crash. Yes, absolutely. Some days are a car crash, and that is very human. And can you forgive yourself? Can you be kind and compassionate towards yourself on car crash days? I would really encourage that. So here are your takeaways. It's a natural transition. All the women and many other people who have passed through this rite of passage have done so without the negativity that we have. It's a natural transition, and you will move through it. It doesn't mean that you're old now. It's a stage, it's a step towards another life stage. And a lot of the difficulties that we're facing are not personal. It's societal. It's the stuff that we're up against that nobody is recognizing that is really causes all the pain. And making the changes in your life now sets you up for a fantastic postmenopausal life. So make these changes to your food and movement now, because you'll feel better instantly, but also you're kind of investing in your future as well. Reduce the toxicity in your life in all forms. So that means toxic friendships as well, you can look at, in the relationships and in the food that you're eating, and increase the amount of nourishment. That beautiful example of texting your mate at the end of the day, that's just gorgeous. And do this step by step and forgiving yourself as you go. So this is me. I have a free resource library there. on my site at katecodrington.co.uk that you can dip into, and I'm going to put into the chat. If you could possibly give us feedback on your experience from these webinars, that would be really helpful. It's a public service because any information that you give us will go towards improving our offerings in the future. And it's anonymous, so you can say what you like. So that is, what is it? Oh, 6 minutes past. So officially we're done now. I'm going to stop my share. There we go. Officially we're done now. But I have a few more minutes if anybody wants to put questions in the chat, or if I've missed anything, you can copy and paste questions in the chat and I can answer them. But thank you so much for contributing and sharing your experiences. I've just been so moved and touched by everything that you've shared. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to second spring there. Yeah, the sad thing is to have difficulties in your 40s. How do you justify this to the society, system and family that you cannot do as much as you did and yet are still young? Yeah. I think that's really hard, and that's something that we get better at when we get support for when we are in communities, right? Leaning into our friendships, into places where we're heard, where we feel recognized. Yeah. Okay. So there aren't more questions. So if there aren't any more questions, then I will close there. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I've really enjoyed sharing this stuff with you, and I really appreciate you being here. Okay. I'm going to be saying goodbye then. Goodbye.